So we have a look at education, income, those are two driving factors. What
Yes.
about health? Raylan, perhaps you could speak a little bit on
Yes.
that.
Health is an important part of any kind of life insurance policy because obviously people are being put into a specific risk pool based on what Neelan has already said. But what happens in that same risk pool is that one person might have already suffered some major life-changing events, which has actually caused them to be a higher risk to the insurance company. So what can happen in that situation is that based on the health situation, the insurance company can apply either a loading or an exclusion on some specific portion of your cover to basically help to make up for that event. Now, let's say, for example, you have high cholesterol. That's a health-changing event. You might find that your premium would be pushed up by 50 or 100% per month so that you are now paying for that increased risk that you are actually posing to the insurance company.
If I'm now in a position, I say, I want to take out life cover policy, I know potentially how much I need or how much I can get. What kind of information, Marita, do I need to disclose in order to have that policy underwritten?
That is a very important part of taking out insurance, and there is the concept of disclosure. That both the insurer and the client being insured must have access to the same information. If the client is withholding information, it's termed non-disclosure, and that can have serious repercussions at claim stage. The best is for the client to fully disclose all medical information. However trivial or however long ago it might be or seem, it's better to disclose it and to leave the underwriting to the underwriters. So if you're not sure whether any medical condition is important or not, rather disclose it, and then the company can investigate it further if they think it needs to be investigated further, or they can disregard it, or they can then apply a loading or an exclusion, whatever may be necessary.
So in other words, information is key to make an
Absolutely.
informed decision. The more information you've got, the better decision you can potentially make on that side. That's from a health and individual point of view. Neelan, just touching on a couple of the general exclusions that people should know about that are probably implicit in most life insurance contracts. What would they generally be?
I think the life insurers have definitely trimmed down the exclusions quite a bit and quite extensively. I think the one that the clients need to be very much aware of is pretty much the one that sits on top of most of the list, which talks about the willful and material non-disclosure, willful and material violation of the law. And what that simply is, if you are deemed to be in contravention of the law and the law has followed its course, we, by virtue of that process, are obliged not to pay. And I think that's a very, very tricky one, because obviously it depends on individual circumstances. But that would be the one exclusion that I think consumers need to be aware of, because it will sit at the top of their list.
So if I'm now caught breaking the law and die as a result of that, my life cover policy proceeds could be in jeopardy.
Correct.
Okay.
I think the one thing we just need to be wary of is there's a whole lot of circumstantial, perhaps evidence we can call it, or information that has to happen along the process of that happening. But I would rather say take ownership of your life and make informed decisions. So just be aware that a decision that you make to perhaps break the law could have a material implication on your life
Other
cover
than death.
benefits.
Yes, yeah. Rana, just quickly from your point of view, obviously this puts a huge responsibility on you as an advisor to make sure that clients are, as far as possible, disclosing the type of information they need to.
Absolutely. An application form is quite a lengthy process that you actually need to go through. Once a financial plan has been done for the clients and all the needs has basically been broken down and a full understanding is basically established for the clients. Now, in terms of doing that, there's a whole lot of medical questions, for example, that would need to be answered. Again, make sure that you disclose all of that medical information. The underwriters would use it correctly. Further information such as your occupation also becomes very important, because your occupation could impose a certain risk on your life. And very often people change occupations while their policy is in existence and don't notify the insurance companies. So that kind of change could also impact on a claim as well. So what we're trying to do is obviously be in contact with clients as much as possible, make sure you get annual reviews, and that way you can always be sure that those kinds of things are always taken care of. Something else that also needs to be brought up in terms of the exclusions is that policies contain a 2-year suicide exclusion. Now, it's something quite weird to be talking about, yet people don't understand that if they do commit suicide or have been deemed to commit suicide on a policy and a claim is supposed to be paid out, there's a 2-year exclusion period where that claim would not be paid out. And unfortunately, that's where the family members that are left behind are actually at jeopardy.
Before we take a break, just quickly from your claims experience point of view, what is broadly the types of death that's coming out through the statistics?
Unfortunately, unnatural deaths is a big proportion of our claims, unfortunately, because it's always very tragic. Very often young people, accidental risk are higher in the young people. The older we get, the accidental risk diminishes, but then the natural deaths, the cancers, the heart attacks, the strokes, other medical conditions take over, and that becomes more prevalent.
Okay, we're going to pick up a bit more on the medical conditions just now.